You're listening to Lemons Listening Library. Discover the story behind the stories with unique and raw conversations from the people who make your favorite books a reality. Welcome to this episode of Lemons Listening Library. I'm your host, Randie Lemons, fantasy author, or RL Rose to those of you in the romance community. I am joined today by my amazing guest, Kathy. Kathy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Kathy Ireland. I am an avid audiobook listener, and I also do audiobook production for one of my authors. So I've been doing that lately. Just all around dabbling in everything in the book world.
Awesome. All right. So I want to do a little bit of it housekeeping before we introduce our amazing guest today, which I imagine if any of you are watching the video, you guys were confused on who was the guest and who was the co-host. So if you guys are interested in our Patreon, you guys can have your services announced on the show and advertised throughout our social media platforms. If you want to help out the show, it's a great way to support it while also getting your services out there to potential clients. So today, our amazing guest is Meghan. Meghan, would you like to tell our listeners a little bit about you from the guest side?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Meghan. I'm 3 pen names and 4 squirrels in a trench coat. You can borrow the pen names. The squirrels have to stay with me because they're the only thing keeping me going up here. I have, at last count, I have 16 books in print across 3 pen names, and I'm super happy to be here to talk to everybody, and it's gonna be great.
On this side of the camera. So Meghan, tell us what started you with writing and how that happened.
So when my daughter was little, my daughter's special needs, she has autism and ADHD. When she was little, she used to have a really hard time falling asleep at night. So I'd tell her little stories to help her fall asleep. And so as she got older, of course, the stories changed. They became more fantastical, less, Winnie the Pooh, and more girl discovers she has dragon powers. My daughter's obsessed with dragons. So from there, I just really started writing my own stories. Like my newest series is based off of a project I helped her do for school, where she had to research a lesser known Greek god and write a book on it, or write a paper on it. So that's where that came from. I basically just stick my head into Wikipedia and write whatever it comes out full of.
Like, let's put my head in here and let words just kind of collect in there,
kind of let things fill up my ears,
and then it says, "Write about me."
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Do you write children's books as well, or just?
I am currently writing a YA for my daughter. I've been writing all the stories that I told her, and kind of compressing them and restructuring them into one book. So that's actually going to be her Christmas gift this year. She doesn't know.
Amazing.
We won't let her watch this episode until after Christmas. So was that, and if you don't want to talk on this, you don't have to, but it was the autism diagnosis. Was that something that was a hard thing for you to go through? Or was it like an aha moment?
It was more yes, because then she can get the help that she needs, so it was actually really exciting for us to finally have the things in hand that we needed to make sure that she's getting the help that she needs. And I'm disabled, I have bipolar disorder, and I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. So, it's all about getting the help that you need to move forward in your life. And anything you can do to kind of pursue that is always going to be good, even if it's hard at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's something like my son's autistic, and that was something that we were like, oh my gosh, we finally have some answers and can understand how he operates and why he does what he does, and then give him the best tools possible.
Exactly. It's all about getting the tools that you need to kind of move forward with your life.
Yeah.
Which is how I've always looked at it anyway.
Yeah. Now, were you diagnosed young, or did that come later on?
Oh no, that was much later. I actually was misdiagnosed at first with depression, and I lived with that diagnosis for probably a decade until my old doctor retired and I got a new one. And my new doctor took one look at me and went, "Hey, you're bipolar," and I'm like, "Huh?"
You're
That
like,
was
oh,
fun.
well, did that
Like,
help? Did that like
yeah.
make it feel
No,
like,
it made it make sense, you know, because sometimes I'd feel fantastic and I'd be on top of the world and I'd get all the stuff done. And other times it was like being in a bottomless, empty hole and I couldn't get anything done. And it never made sense because depressed people, well, I'm gonna generalize here, and that's horrible of me. I didn't feel depressed all the time. And a lot of people with type 2 depression, like I was diagnosed with, do. You know, it's a constant low. And for me, it was alternating lows and highs, and I just never had a word for it.
I wonder if the misdiagnosis also added to the lows of the bipolar, because
Oh,
you're like,
100%.
you know,
Because
like you knew that
it,
it like that wasn't quite the right,
right. Yeah,
like,
it's not
you know,
quite right,
that's not really me, but
but you
well, what do
also
I
don't have,
know?
I don't have the tools to diagnose myself. I just,
Right.
I don't. So that's,
yeah. Yeah, but like definitely kind of like what Kathy was saying, knowing something's not right with a diagnosis, then kind of seeking more into what it is, because
mhm.
a lot of times, sometimes our self-diagnosis is more accurate than
Oh,
the diagnosis that they're like, okay, let's try this, let's try this, let's try this.
right. And that's 100% true, of course. It just, I just relied on what my doctor told me, but I knew it wasn't quite right. You know, it's just something never really fit right for that.
Well, that's
Yeah.
good that you were an advocate for yourself, right? Because that's
Mhm.
something that I feel like a lot of people are, they're like, okay, well, I got this diagnosis. I now am depressed. And so you believe you're depressed,
Right.
and that's hard, and they just kind of live with it and they don't go any further. But you're like, no, this isn't right.
Hmm.
Let's dig deeper.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why, when my old therapist retired, rather than kind of following where they sent me, I went looking for another doctor that specialized in like re-diagnosis. And found,
So smart.
what I actually needed to be diagnosed with rather than what I'd already been diagnosed with. Because if I'd stayed in that practice, they just would have shunted me to another doctor who would have said the same thing.
Right.
So, and later in life diagnoses are different than, my daughter was diagnosed with ADHD and at 6. I wasn't diagnosed with bipolar disorder until I was 39. So, it's just, it makes a whole lot of difference depending on how your brain is and what stage of development you're in, things like that.
Seriously, I think that that is such a good point to um really towards any sort of thing that you know is kind of just not right in your
Hmm.
body, and what you're getting from your doctor doesn't seem to quite resonate quite right. Like, I think we have this weird sense of obligation to our doctors if we've been going
Hmm.
to them for a long time, to maybe not question them or whatever. And I think that's such a good point to be like, it's okay to give yourself permission to go
Hmm.
out, get a second opinion outside
Oh,
of where you're going.
yeah, 100%. I totally agree with that.
Now, was mom or dad, did they have things that like now it makes sense like with your diagnosis, because it's
Oh,
hereditary,
oh
correct?
yeah,
Yeah.
it generally is. And I 100% believe that my mom, looking back on growing up, and I 100% believe my mom is undiagnosed bipolar.
Yeah.
I 100% believe that. Um, and looking back at some of the things that, growing up, once again, I think my father had an undiagnosed disorder where it came to food, like
Mhm.
disordered eating. So that was fun.
Yeah, when you have the awareness, you're like, oh, you actually probably have this or this,
Yeah, you
and
should actually
understanding
probably
a little
see
more.
somebody for that.
Here's my doctor.
You're right. Exactly. Like
I,
I'm
I,
trying
I,
trying to get my mom to move out here so that I can send her to my doctor and be like, hey, poke, poke.
yeah. Well, it does allow you, like, there's this strange transition from, when we don't understand our parents to when we do. And
Hmm.
once we get to that point to where we're like, oh, some of the stuff that they made sense, or some of the stuff that they did now makes sense, it's
Hmm.
easier to not be so upset by, because, like, a lot of kids, it's natural. We just get hurt by them not being there the way we need them to be.
Right. But parenting is like it's pantsing, it's hard. It's so hard. And it's like you can't always, and with kids being on the other side now, being a parent, their needs change so fast. They need one thing one moment, and they need something else another moment, and as they're growing, their needs are changing and their feelings are so big, they just don't know what to do with them.
And
Yeah.
nobody gives us a roadmap, like an
Right.
instruction book.
There's no
And so,
manual.
no. And so all we know is what was done with us, right?
Right.
Like
Right.
that's basically all we know. And, hopefully glean some things from friends or whatever, but they're also learning from what their parents
Exactly.
did with them.
Exactly.
And so it's really hard to get out of that. It's like a rut,
It
in a
is. It is
row. It's
100%.
super hard.
There's a reason that generational trauma is a thing, It's because that rut is really hard to kind of take a step out of. That step is huge.
It
Yeah.
is.
And
It
trying
is.
to get out of that is hard. And
Yeah.
it takes
And you don't like you're in the I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
We're in the right frame of mind, right? Our motives are right. We just want
Mhm.
what's best for our kids. And, but some things that we do out of love probably sometimes don't come across
Right.
as they grow older.
Mhm.
So I can understand that. My kids are grown. And so, sometimes every time actually, they're like, I go visit and they're like, well, you did this and this and this. And I'm like, I'm sorry. Like, I
Like
didn't mean to.
the best that I could do with with the tools that I had at the time,
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, exactly. It's
Yeah.
hard.
But
Parenting is hard, y'all.
parenting is hard.
my God.
Who
Yeah.
gave me this responsibility and who thought it was a good idea? Because
Right. Like if I had known the amount of work that it goes into dealing with somebody else's mental health, I probably would have just had one child. I was just like, okay, I'm going to put all my focus into you because having 3 different children with 3 different personalities and they're all at different stages, it's like I'm exhausted from just parenting and doing it correctly,
Exactly.
right? Like, or to the
Right.
best of our ability.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I only
I
have
think
one. I'm done. I'm good.
You're smart.
People that have my sister-in-law has 6, and I'm just like Godspeed.
Jesus. No,
Yeah.
no.
Nope. I love my kids and I'm just gonna be like, bear with me, please.
I tell my
Yeah.
kid that I tell my daughter that I need you to hold on. I'm doing my best. I needed to go do some research on this because I'll have an answer for you in just a few minutes, but I don't have that answer right now.
Isn't it crazy how they just think we know everything? Like
Yeah,
my son will
all the
come and ask
time.
me stuff of like the space and like I'm like, honey, I have no idea. Let me go
Mhm.
Google it or we can Google it together because
Right. Like,
I
let
don't
me go
know.
find that answer because I don't know.
Yeah.
But that being able to being able to look at your child and tell them I don't know is simultaneously the most freeing and the most difficult thing in life. Because you're admitting that you're not infallible, which is something that they need to know. But also, that's
My kids learned that so early.
yeah.
And I am totally gonna make everybody thirsty on the podcast. So here you go, y'all.
Ooh,
My soda.
crispy.
Crispy fresh.
Right.
And if you want to know what that was, we need a sponsor before you guys actually get to know what drink that was.
Yep.
Yes,
Just
exactly.
kidding.
Sponsorship.
But it is in the lightning koozie. So
I see.
lightning
I came
sponsors.
unprepared. I don't have anything to drink. I just have Cedric.
You can't
I
drink
have
Cedric.
both water and my
Oh,
pop. So.
he's my rubber duck.
I feel like this is my like when I talk over Kathy, but then I need something to do with my hands. I'm like, okay, now I need to take a drink because then I'll let her talk.
Yeah.
Same thing. It's so funny.
But it sounds like that understanding of your daughter has brought you guys closer, and like you guys sound like you have an amazing relationship.
Yeah. She sits in that chair over there and we talk about everything. There are no off limits topics between us. We talk about literally everything. She has a question, she comes to me with a question. If I don't know the answer, we find it together. If it's not an age appropriate question, I will straight tell her, I can answer some of that. I can't answer all of it yet because your brain isn't ready for the answer yet.
Yeah.
But she comes to me with everything and it's fantastic. I would never want her to do anything else. This is either that or she's finding out erroneous information online. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And sometimes she gets faced with that because she's at that age and she plays a game online and some people talk and she's like, Mom, what does this mean? And I'm like, well, let's talk about that. Let's sit down and we'll unwrap that, we'll unpack it, and we'll figure out what's truth and what's not, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah.
How
I
old is
think
she
it would
now?
be
She's
easier with
14.
Okay.
yeah. I definitely, so me and my son are like that, but it's, the gender difference makes it just a little awkward sometimes. So like when we're
Yeah.
going through these conversations, it's like, I'm going to help you as much as I can from what I know, but
Mm-hmm.
also go talk to your stepdad, because some of this
Yeah.
stuff
Yeah.
is
Like
a little bit out of my realm.
when
But
the plumbing is different, you kind of gotta shunt that a little bit.
yeah, but I mean, it's such a beautiful dynamic, but also it makes it to where, like, how all of us had like that one best friend that we talked to all this stuff
Mm-hmm.
about? They don't necessarily have that, or at least mine doesn't. Like, I'm the
Yeah,
one he comes to for everything.
exactly. Yep. Which is simultaneously wonderful and exhausting.
Yes, yes. That is correct. In
Mhm.
like, we don't have those high emotions like, other kids their age do. So whenever
Yeah.
they get excited about something, we're like, that's so cool. I'm happy for you, but it's not
Hmm.
the jumping up and down with them. And
Right. Yeah. It's not the rejoicing that they're looking for. Yeah.
okay, well, that was a huge divergent on what we were.
Segue.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back though real quick because I do want to touch on one little thing. So I think that you should consider another pseudo and consider writing children's
Mm,
books,
I can probably
because
figure that out. I
it
need
would
another
be,
pen name, but hey, what's one more of the party? You know what I mean?
what's one more?
What's one more? It's fine. I
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
I had 6. I'm down to 3. 4 is not that big a jump. It'll be fine.
I think children's books, and this was a conversation we had with Emily, was just the dark side of children's book that allows children to experience stuff, like death and things in a very safe manner. And
Mhm.
having someone like you who is so open with understanding people's different point of views and perspectives, and their feelings are, legitimate. I think Kathy's right. I think you would be amazing at that.
Yeah, I'm very careful to always tell Isabel, I might not be able to understand how you're feeling, but that doesn't make it any less valid, you
And
know.
I
Yeah.
think that as a parent from, at the time, I didn't think that my kids had anything. As an adult,
Hmm.
one of my kids is like gone and been um, diagnosed with, I think, depression. I don't know,
Hmm.
something. Anyway, and she's on medication, which has helped her so much,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
so much. But I didn't know, right? Like
Hmm.
I had
Right.
no idea. My pediatrician never,
Yeah,
he
they
never
never
brought
brought
that
it up.
up. No, and so and I was one who also read to my kids voraciously.
Hmm.
And so I would have loved to have a book like that, one to help my kids understand other kids from that point of view,
Yeah.
and how to just I just think it would be a really neat contribution to parenting.
Well, I'll make a note and I'll see what I can do.
See a need, fill a need.
Yeah, I mean, true. I love that movie. That movie's fantastic.
Yes. Yeah.
I actually sat down with my kid the other day. We watched Emperor's New Groove,
Oh
and
my
it was such, I love that movie.
I have such a big age gap between the older two and the little one. So the older two have seen so many movies, but the little one is so specific, and he will not sit through movies unless it like hooks him. And
Hmm.
he just got hooked on Finding Nemo, which was great because we were burning out Totoro and Ponyo so
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, Ghibli is a great thing.
oh my gosh, yeah. But Inside Out, that's another one I hope he gets into. That one was such a good movie
That's
with
a good, yeah,
it
just,
was good
ooh,
for adults.
yeah, for sure. Like,
Yeah, my sadness felt that.
mm-hmm. Yep.
So tell me about how your journey happened from, getting it, you went through food service worker to
Mm-hmm.
research scientist, and
Yep.
then how did that go into writing?
Okay, so I started out, most people start the first jobs, so customer facing, customer service, all that stuff. So you get yelled at a lot and you have to clean things that you never thought you would have to clean in your life. But we don't talk about that because it's gross. Um, so, and eventually you get tired of it and you go to school and you end up with a culinary degree in my case. Um, and then you work in a kitchen at the school for a little while and you find out that you want more. And so And the interim, you get married and you have to move twice, and you end up in Alabama. You end up in northern Alabama, which is, they call it the Rocket City. We have the highest per capita PhDs in the entire United States in the city I live in. You get 50 people together, you don't throw a rock and you hit somebody with a PhD. It's just a thing. And then you get another degree. You get a degree in astrophysics, and then you go work in a research lab, and then the research lab loses funding and you lose all your work because and your heart breaks because you spent a year doing all that research.
Oof.
And then you just give life the middle finger and you go write. You get really pissed off and you write a book that's, a research scientist whose research turns out and opens this portal to this other world and goes through it. And it was a little bit Jane and Thor from the Marvel movies, but this was pre all that. So you write that, and then you realize that you really kind of enjoyed that, and then you find out about NaNoWriMo, and you write 100,000 words in November of 2022, and you
Tell us what NaNoWriMo is for the people who don't know.
Oh, sorry, it's National Novel Writing Month. It's in November every year. The goal is to put 50,000 words down in a month. So you write 100,000 in November, and you finish your first book ever, and then you take a step back and you say, okay, I did this. Now what do I do with it? And you realize, and then you find a community online on Reddit, and they tell you that, if you want to, that self-publishing is in fact a valid and viable thing. And then you step back again and you look at it and you go, okay, I want to learn to do this. And you write and you pen some other stuff. You pen some little short stories and you publish them. And then you get addicted to hitting the publishing button. And then you step from shorts to novellas, and you stay with novellas for a little while because they're really fun to write. And you write a whole series for your mother-in-law who found out that you write, but you can't read any of the other stuff that you write because she would have a very religious heart attack. So you write some very specific sweet stories for your mother and your mother-in-law, so that they can read what you write, but they're not reading the other stuff that you write, if you get my drift. And then you step from novellas, and then you step into novels, and you realize that you love writing novels, and then you publish those novels, and you just don't stop,
Yeah, it's like breadcrumbs to the next thing.
Exactly. And then you get addicted to art, and so you have to keep writing because you have to have stuff to do. You have to have stuff that fits your art. And then you just don't stop, because there's something about creating worlds that don't exist, about helping people step out of reality that's incredibly rewarding.
Yeah, and I'll say, like, you don't come to the same job twice with writing. Like, it is a different ballgame every day.
Every time. Because your characters want different things, and it's the characters wanting the things that they want that drives the story forward. And that
so your characters,
the way I write. Yeah. Oh no, I don't write. I follow my characters around and write up the incident report. They do it. I just write up what happens. It's out of my hands. I put them on the paper and they just go.
I love that analogy, the incident report. That's hilarious.
It's just an incident report. My ducks are not. I don't have ducks. I do not have a train of thought. I have 5 trains on 4 tracks, and all the conductors are screaming. So,
what different genres do you write in? Can you tell us?
So so Anita Primrose writes White Shoes fantasy romance. Mia Davis writes MF fantasy romance. Natalie Hyland writes historical Omegaverse. And then next year, Cassandra Russ will write sci-fi romance.
That is so. And when we first met and you told me you had all these pen names, I was like, okay, I don't quite understand. And then when you explained, all of the different pen names and all the different genres and the actual marketing that goes into each one is so different.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, that's fucking brilliant.
It's called niching down, and I'm not overly niche down, but I am really tight. It's a very tight niche. It's a funnel, because you get readers that enjoy everything, and then as you funnel them down, you find your whale readers who are going to read everything that you write, no matter what it is. And then because those are the readers that you want. You want the highly engaged, whale readers, basically. So you funnel them until they hit your niche and they fall in and they really love what you do. So that's the goal, is to create these highly engaged readers that are going to pick up whatever you write. But that's more marketing than writing. So
Now, before we go any forward, I want to jump back to the PhD thing for a minute, because that was so fascinating to me whenever we first met and we were talking, and you're like, I do this thing. And I was like, oh, you mean like Raj, what Raj does? And you're like, yes, that's what I do. And I was like, oh,
Yep.
okay. So what got you into that?
I love space. Space is cool. We know less, we know more about space than we do about the depths of the ocean. But we also, I worked in a gravitation lab. I studied gravitation because we know what gravity does. We don't know why. It's like how a bumblebee shouldn't fly. Gravity does some things that shouldn't really be possible, but we can't figure out why it happens. So that was where my research went, was into why it does what it does. Because gravity shatters light. It shouldn't, but we don't know why.
Shatters light.
Will break light. If you pass light through a high gravity field, the light breaks. It turns into rainbows, but we don't know why. So that was what my research was going towards, was trying to figure out why that happens.
So how accurate is Big Bang Theory with what they do with like going into work and in their studies and things like that?
It really kind of depends on the university, since they were all attached to a university. I was attached to the University of Alabama in Huntsville, which is where I live. And so a lot of it is fairly accurate. But most, I haven't watched as much Bang Bang. I've watched the first couple of seasons, so it may get more accurate later. But a lot of PhDs will also teach. It's not lab work 100% of the time. It's you step out, you deal with students, you deal with funding, budgetary meetings, things like that. And you don't see a whole lot of budgetary considerations in Big Bang Theory. It's like their funding is always secured. It's not like that in real life. You're constantly fighting for your funding.
Yeah. And that's devastating, like the losing of the funding and all of your work. Because now what happens with that? Does it just sit there, or does someone eventually pick it up, or is you the only one who can pick it up?
No, if at some point that gravitation lab regains funding, they will bring in a new cohort, and whoever's working in that field at the time will pick up that work. I'm hoping that they'll pick my work back up and be able to do something with it. It will not be me. I am no longer a part of the university. And I'm okay with that. I wasn't for a while, but you get your heart broken enough and you just have to step away, which is what happened to me. I burnt out because I was part of 3 labs and all 3 lost funding, and I lost my work each time, and it was just, I couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah, that is, I feel like that's, and it's not equivalent, because I imagine actual science and stuff that is actually affecting, well, I don't want to say that, because I was going to say writing doesn't affect the real world, but it does.
It does. And losing anything like that is devastating. Yeah. And it's, I'm not here to minimize anybody. Losing your work is always going to be devastating. It doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah.
If you believe in it, you love that work, and you lose it, it hurts. It hurts a lot. I'm never going to minimize somebody losing their work like that. Doesn't matter what it is. It could be, it could be my work on gravitation. It could be half of your novel. It could be, the recipe you were developing that's suddenly gone. That's devastating. It doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, loss is something. And what's so strange about the grief system is, like, when you grieve something, it doesn't have to be a person or, things like that. Like that, you actually have to go through the grief system for that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yep. When I lost my grandmother, my therapist referred to it as a ball in a box, and the box has a button in it. And at the beginning, the ball is so big that it just constantly pushes the button. And the ball over time will shrink, but occasionally it will still hit that button. Like it'll still bounce up and hit the button, and then it hurts just as bad. And it doesn't matter how much time goes by, it's still going to hurt.
It's true.
Yeah, no, that's definitely, grief is something that's so crazy, and how it affects people and the way that we perceive it is crazy, because it, like you said, like years and years and years can go by, but man, that when it hits that button, it is just as painful.
Yep, just as bad. Yep.
Yeah, it's hard. I lost my mom in 2013. She died of lung cancer, and there's days that I don't think about her now. Like I don't even think about her. And then there's days that I'm like picking up my phone to call her. I'm like, you know?
Right. Yeah.
And it's just like, well, shit.
Yeah. It really does. And it never goes away. It's always there. The button is always there. It's just the ball gets smaller.
Yeah, it's really weird what triggers those things too.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
sometimes it's not even like life
Yeah.
altering, you know?
No, for
Like,
sure.
I made this recipe that I think you would really like, or, you know, some
Mhm.
stuff like that.
Yeah, no, it's true. You know, that it's facts.
Yes. And what's so crazy is like the different things that hit you. Like for me, like I will have people who are related to me but not super close to me that pass away and it doesn't affect me as bad. But then
Mhm.
like the actress who died the other day from the Harry Potter, Miss McGonagall,
Yeah.
and
Dame Maggie Smith.
yes, when I saw that I was like, that is heartbreaking.
Mhm.
And it's just crazy how we do I am detached in certain areas to certain
Mhm.
things. And you know, other people are, you know, everything affects them. And it's just
Yeah.
the spectrum of which we live on is so different from person to person.
Mhm. It's 100% true. You know, it's just what we're attached to, what we kind of cherry pick out of life and make our own, and that's always gonna, so different things are gonna hit different people in different ways, you know. People that grew up when Harry Potter was releasing and it's a big part of their personality, you know, that hit hard. For me, it was losing Betty White, you know. Betty White passed and I was just
Yeah.
clutching my pearls, you know. So, you know, that one was really hard for me because when my grandma, we used to watch Golden Girls all the time. That was our show. And then I lost grandma and then Betty White passed. And it was just the,
Oh,
the
double
ball hit it.
whammy.
The ball flew up and hit the button. So yeah,
Yeah.
it was,
Oh, yes. That's another thing too, is it's like the things that trigger that, right? Because like
mm-hmm.
it's not just random, it's also I feel like triggered by things that's like you hear the song or you know a certain
Yep.
time. Like my mom and me, for some reason, she always said, whenever you see 222 on the clock, think of me. And that was
Mm-hmm.
every time I see that, I think of my mom. And so like just a number would do that. And just the things that we connect with people and the way that our
Mm-hmm.
brain like makes the little wires inside connect to
Yep.
different things.
Food
The
is
synaptic
a huge
connections,
one.
food, scents are a big one.
Yep. My mom passed away from cancer as well, and I have a stack of her clothing in a tote, and when I take it out, I don't leave it out for very long because I can smell it very briefly and it smells like my mom, and then I put it back.
Yep. Yep.
And
Scent is a big one. Scent is the way that scent is tied into your frontal lobe is weird. Brains are weird. Brains are really interesting. Like the synaptic connections and how plastic everything is. And I did a ton of research on brains for part of my new book, and it was just like, oh, rabbit hole.
my husband is in school for psychology, and the stuff he learns about them is insane. We talk about this all the time, is you know the difference between a lot of animals, and I don't want to say all animals because a lot of animals have
Mhm.
we are learning have very similar things to us, but the thing that is so different between us and animals is our emotions and like the
Yeah.
emotions that affect everything with how we operate.
Yep. And how, you know, your childhood emotion like rearranges your brain synapses and the way they fire, and it's super interesting.
Yes. And then rewiring that,
Hmm.
like, though, so we get these pathways, right? And then to rewire them, actually, it's like you have to physically almost go in and disrupt them to
Yep.
rewire them. But there's
Hmm.
still that connection that it can go back to until you do it so many times the other
Yeah.
way
You have to
that,
basically you have to retrench your brain is how
Mhm.
my doctor referred to it. You have to retrench everything because those pathways, you know, they're trenches. They're not cobblestones. Those are
Ruts.
valleys, and you have to like retrench everything. So
It's
so
crazy.
crazy. That's something if I don't know. Part of me I would be like, okay, if I want to do science, I would do that. But then the other side of me is so afraid of the brain. Like it scares the hell out of me. The power of our brains. It's
hmm
like, okay, maybe I don't want to go down that path.
maybe I don't, but also hello.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Look,
my
but don't touch.
sometimes I just want to be a cat, man. I just want to lay in a sunbeam and not think and just be a cat for a day, but you know, I got books to write, so that's not going to happen.
Yeah, if only we could transform and then come back.
Right? Like I just want to lay in the sun for a day. It'd be great. But I'd be bored after 20 minutes. I know me too well.
Right? I like how much cat stuff can you do before it's repetitive every day?
Right? Like no, I'm good. I think I'll just keep my crazy life and I'll keep moving forward. Oh, hi Pan.
So your first book that you wrote was tied to your scientist life. Do you feel like that was a way of like saying goodbye to it, or just kind of maybe working through something that you didn't get to?
It was definitely a mourning piece. It was definitely a piece that sort of like helped me bridge the gap between, what I thought I was going to be doing and what actually happened. So it was a piece that I wrote to help me kind of cross that bridge and say goodbye. But as far as like I use my research and my writing almost all the time now, because it gravity creates worlds, you know. So using the knowledge that I gained through that kind of helps me world build a little bit more. So my worlds are a little bit more accurate based on what I know can be done and what just doesn't work.
When there is science behind books, it makes them so much more realistic. Like
Hmm.
Brandon Sanderson does that, and the Fourth Wing writer, she had a military background, so the military structure in there was, and I love whenever
Yaros.
authors, yes, when they
Hmm.
pull in their real life stuff and they're like, oh, I actually know what I'm talking about. I don't have to
Her
research as
husband's
much.
still in the
Yeah.
military,
Yeah,
so she
Well,
has
and
a lot of that.
yeah,
yeah.
and I did reenactment too. So I did Victorian reenactments for a few years. So when I write my historicals, I'm pulling on that. That's the reason they're set where they are, because I can pull on that data, and then it's more realistic.
Wow.
Yeah. That's something that I've always learned as an author is if you want it to be emotional and you want it to have that human element, having something that you've either lived through or can very closely like, okay, it's so similar, it's you just change the shirt kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. Just file the serial numbers off, slap a new one on there, you're good to go.
Yep. Yep.
I have a question for you, Megan. So
Hmm.
you are very much an analytical person, like a
Yes.
very scientifically based person.
Hmm.
So, and you had mentioned that you had gotten into art. Is that what kind of feeds, because to do these like other worlds, or like fantasy, other realms, other worlds, whatever, you have to have
Hmm.
a lot of crazy creativity as
Right.
well as
Yeah.
so is that where you draw like your love of art, or how does that, because I would think that if for a very scientific person it might be difficult to get outside of the box of like, this is how
And
this is supposed to work, and be like, nah,
eh,
who
no, I
cares.
can I throw some science at it, and then I cover it with the scaffolding of, hey, look, magic. Uh, so yes, everything is underpinned by reality, but you can kind of sort of hand wave with there's magic in everything, because the real world is too real worldy a lot of the time for me. Uh, so I toss magic at everything. And so as much as I am analytical and I'm very science driven, I was that kid dreaming of dragons in the school bus in third grade. Fourth grade, my teacher read me a series called Redwall, and it's all about talking animals in a magical world where they have adventures. So that was my jumping off point right there to really kind of losing myself in books, and was that series. And so from there, I just never really stopped. But I like art because it's a physical representation of the things that are in here, because I can visualize it. I can put it on paper, but I can't draw it to save my life. So that's why I have artists.
I get inspired by art all the time, and it's not just
Mhm.
like I will see pictures sometimes, I'm like I can create a story for that. But
Right.
sometimes it's like songs or like a
Mhm.
one line in a movie or something, and the stuff that inspires creative people it's insane.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a one line inspired a six book, three duet series. One line, one song. It's called "Don't Take the Money." The line is literally "Don't take the money." And I'm like, what are we taking money for? And then my brain just kind of so. And it was only supposed to be one book. It was six. Oops.
Oops.
My my husband likes to tell me that the only books I have that aren't series are the ones that I haven't written yet. He's not wrong.
Yeah, me and Dominic have talked about that, and he's like, "What if you were to do a standalone?" I was like, "I don't know how to do that because I would
What's a standalone?
automatically, yeah,
Yeah. What's a standalone? Can I eat it?
yeah." But what if it wasn't a standalone?
Yeah. But what if there was more plot than I can fit in one book, you know?
So, but I have a question. Are all of your are all of your series like, do they end on a cliffhanger and they're completely like you have to read one to read the other, or are
Oh
they
no.
standalones within your
This
series?
so So, well, let's take my first series, my big series, Bonded Wings, for example. That's a 6-book series. The series is 3 duets. It's 2 books, 2 books, 2 books. Each set of 2 books follows a different protagonist, but the overarch is constant. So I say that while you can pick up books 3 and 4 and read those out of order, it's best because you're going to miss background that's in books 1 and 2. So I say it's best to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But with at the other end of the spectrum is my Omega Brides. That's Natalie Hyland, and you can read those in any order. The only follow through the thread there is that the couples from the other books will occasionally pop up in the book you're reading. But
That's always
that's
fun.
that's the through line.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but
So those are
so I run the
really standalones within your.
they're it's called interconnected standalones, but yeah, they're standalones. But it's in the same world. You know, so there's a through line there. So I call it a series because series will sell better.
Yeah.
So,
well, then you were thinking like, okay, here's this thing that these two people went through, but what if we looked at it from this side of the table with these two people?
Exactly.
I get that. I get that so much. So, what is the saying that you have? The man fall first, the danger is real, and love conquers all.
Conquers all, yeah. So they fall first. Pretty self-explanatory. They're the ones that fall in love first. The danger is I call it dark world soft romance. So as much as the world is falling apart, and in Bonded Wings, the world is literally falling apart. Because there's anyway. So but romance is the thing that kind of pulls everything back together. The love between the characters is what saves the world.
Now, was that something that was coined for you because of that's what you enjoyed writing, or were you like, this is just how it works and it makes the most sense?
No, that's what I enjoy writing. I love writing
or reading. I'm sorry.
Well, both really. I love writing things where the world is kind of going to pot, but there's love there still, and so as long as there's that light, nothing is really lost.
Like that.
Yeah, that is really good.
Now, you have your life. I love knowing you personally because your life just is fantastic. You have a full-time job, plus your specials need little girl is amazing, and your writing career.
I love her. Yep. That's
How do you do all of that?
Caffeine. I run on caffeine and more caffeine. Yes, I got the brain squirrels. It's caffeine and ADHD. So I have a very regimented schedule. I plan my publishing schedule is planned out a year in advance. My events are planned out a year in advance. So basically I already have 2025 booked. 2025 is booked and planned. My editor has all my dates. So here we go. As soon as January hits, we're off. And so I've done like this book here. This was book 7 of the year. My editor has book 8. Books 9 and 10 are in the works.
Okay, you can't tease us with one. We know there's more over there. Show us.
I have all 3 of them. My babies. This is my Greek series. This is the series I'm currently middle of. This is 1, 2, 3.
Dream, Nightmare, and Fantasy.
Fantasy. Yep, that's my baby. This is the newest one. He just went up this last beginning of the month. He went up on the 8th, I think. But I gave myself a challenge, and my editor had fantasy for 2 weeks. I gave myself a challenge to write a book in those 2 weeks. And that was book 5 of my Omega Brides. And now my editor has that book, and that book was 70,000 words. So I cranked 70K in 2 weeks.
Yes. Okay. So you have this amazing system that you do with your editor where you're like, okay, I'm going to send you this book by this date. You set your own deadlines, but you also pull in this accountability partner that is like, oh, I'm paying you. So I have to do this.
Well, she's on retainer, right? So I pay her for a certain number of words every month. If she gets those words, I give her as many words as I can. But if she doesn't get those words, I still have to pay her. So it's an incentive thing. You roll the words so that you're not paying for nothing.
That is, you've got systems in place, whether it's just caffeine or it's actually all your systems. It's a good combination.
It's a lot of systems. There's a lot of systems that underpin everything that I do because, ADHD. And so having chain stepping accountability stuff is very important to my process.
So that's actually a super really good thing. If you've ever read the book Atomic Habits, that's what he talks about in there,
Yep.
is to stack your habits on top of each other, and
Mhm.
where when you do one, it kind of rolls into the other.
Yep. And so I have my system for when on days that I work. I have a system for when I'm on my days off. I have breaks built in. I have buffer days. I actually have everything scheduled out in 30-minute increments. So it's called time blocking. And for anybody with ADHD that thinks that might help them, it's a great system. I highly recommend looking it up. And so I block my time every week in half an hour increments. And then on my days off, I try to write 10,000 words. On days when I work, I try to write 3. Last 2 Sundays ago, I pushed 19,000, and then pushed edits on 69,000. So, and editing for me is straight line by line transposition. So I've got my editor's document open in one window, my document open in the other window, and I'm moving commas back and forth between the documents. So, checking, accepting, rejecting changes, and then moving them over. So that, and I can push edits on 70K in about 6 hours. But my eyeballs wanted to leave my head after that day. They
Now,
were
is
very
that
done with me.
those aren't self edits though, right? Those are edits that are suggested from the editor.
For my editor, yeah. Yeah, those are coming straight from my editor. I don't double draft. I'm a one and done drafter. So I write the first draft, it's okay. So my process is I do a tent pole outline, then I do what I refer to as a barf draft. So I do scene outlines, scene level outlines. And then I go in and I I put out the full draft. And that's the draft that goes to my editor. So it's just process.
So where do you fit betas and stuff? I'm sorry, Kathy. I've seen you want to ask questions so many times. Go ahead. You're fine.
No, it's fine because it's kind of a different question. So go ahead and finish this train of thought that you.
Where do betas and alphas fit into you, or ARC readers fit into your system?
So it goes outline, barf draft, final, finished draft, editors, beta. If it comes back from my editor, I push edits, betas, ARC readers, publication.
Do you ever have, so from the editing and then the beta and the ARC reads, do you ever have any like revisions within that if there's a lot of feedback?
Okay, so I don't read my reviews. I make my husband do it. If there's something that pops more than 3 times, he makes a note of it, brings it to me, and then I incorporate. If it just pops up once or twice, I don't tend to worry about it too much, because not every book is going to be for every person. And so if it's just like a one thing, like a one-off, or if it's a typo, I'll go in and fix it. But I comma splice, like my life depends on it. So that's a lot of what I do when I do my edits, is I fix my comma splices. But yeah.
I might have missed it, but so what do you do? So you have a full-time job aside from, and what is that?
I'm a professional nerd.
Okay.
Literally, I work at my local game store.
Cool.
And I DM professionally. I'm a professional D&D DM.
Right.
Yeah, I totally did the metagaming there because I knew that and I did not tell anybody that.
But
Good
yeah,
job, Kathy.
So I work there. I full 40 hours a week there, and then I spend writing, and then I homeschool my kid. So that's my day.
Homeschool your child.
Yeah, I homeschool my daughter because she's got special needs, and she has more needs than, because the schools around here are dead crowded, and the teachers do the best they can with what they have, but they don't have a lot at the end of the day. So I just homeschool her, because then I can give her the support that she needs, and
Yeah.
Do you do, like, I know a lot of homeschooling. Do you do co-op homeschooling with people, with other homeschoolers?
Yeah, and then there's a whole group here that does like events and stuff a couple of times a month. So we sign up for those events, and so she still has a chance to like interact with kids her own age. So.
And I really want to point that out because I have a very good friend in Houston that has homeschooled her kids forever, and they do the co-op. And I mean, like, she's one of the, they take turns teaching classes, and so she teaches like, some kind of super brainiac thing, like what you would, like, I don't know, she's ridiculously smart, but robots or something. And so I want to point that out, that homeschooling is not what it used to be.
Oh no, not at all.
Homeschooling is literally it has come so far, and these kids are not sitting at home isolated from all,
Mhm.
interaction with any person whatsoever. I mean, many times homeschooled children are far more respectful and kind
Yep. I have
and
noticed that.
compassionate than public school. I'm just saying, so I just wanted to point that out to our listeners, that homeschooling these days, and if you are a homeschooler or considering that, reach out
There's a
to
lot of there's a
so
lot of
many
resources out there.
resources.
There's so many more resources than there were when I was
You
young.
don't have to do it alone.
No, not at all.
Yeah, I've considered homeschool for my kiddo, with autism, because it is, like you said, it's just the school tries so hard, but
They do their best,
it's
bless them, but it's hard. When you've got 30 kids in a classroom, it's hard. And I
yeah,
get it,
yeah.
and
Again, so one of the other things I wanted to ask you was, because you have, like, you are so, your time is so regimented.
mm-hmm.
One, help function within the ADHD, but I would also like, what does letting loose look like for Megan? Because I would think that that would be something that you need to do.
Yeah. And so I have buffer blocks built in. I have days off built in. Like last Sunday, for instance, I took my kid and my husband, and we all went up to the national park here for the day, and we just kind of wandered around, and I emptied my brain out. I opened my head up and tipped everything out, like a teapot, and I just sort of walked around outside for the day and just let my brain relax, and that was really nice. I hadn't done that in months. Because I'll tell you, life took the paddle out this year and has never put it away. It's like, uh,
Yeah, and we know that you said, "Oh yeah, I like that."
yeah, I'm sore. I'm not having fun anymore. Life needs to put the paddle down.
The first couple swats were fine, but it's
Yeah,
getting a
no,
little
no,
much.
now we're done. Stop
It's
it.
like,
I'm,
oh,
I'm
oh,
done.
oh, no.
Yeah. I was having fun for a while. Don't get me wrong. I love a challenge, but I'm done now.
Yeah. I love your personality. I love that. I know I could joke with you about that kind of stuff. So,
Yeah. Well, I did spend multiple hours yesterday researching furniture for certain uses. So
see, it's perfect.
yeah, new book. Um,
Research. Those are
yeah.
tax deductibles for my job.
Exactly, exactly. I mean, how are you going to research if you can't get the real thing in your house and,
Right.
experiment?
Exactly. You don't know if it
How
actually
would you know
works
the
that way.
positioning, or how would you know what's on, how long does
Exactly. Wind
the shoe sit there
resistance, how
on
much
the
pressure can you really
pedal?
put on these straps, that kind of stuff.
Your husband's like, yay, research.
Yep, no, you are not wrong. Mans is very happy.
I can't wait till you listen to the last two episodes we did. We were talking about so much sex positive stuff, and just how all of the romance community and just the
Mhm.
talk that we have around what we have going on. It's such an amazing space to be in within the romance community.
Yeah. Well, I got my start in straight erotica. Yeah, I wasn't sure how far down the rabbit hole that it was going to be safe for me to go, but I started out in BDSM erotica. That was where I got my start. That was the first thing I published. I have 4 series out, 7 books each of just straight bondage erotica.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
where I
And
started.
sex sells though, man.
Oh yeah.
Everyone has a sexual side, whether it's
Mhm.
repressed or whether it is very out there and the doors are wide open.
Yep.
Everyone's got it.
Yep.
So
Mhm.
it sells.
And the sex positivity of the Why Choose community has been great, because you got multiple partners and everybody's loving everybody, and it's fantastic, and I love it.
Yeah, that genre especially, I think, has really, really taken off, and I think that maybe much of it kind of started in the paranormal and fantasy area, but like I've read several, hockey romances that are white shoes, and so it's coming into the contemporary and the rom-coms and stuff, which I think is great.
Mhm. Yeah. It's definitely getting to be more and more regular in the contemporary space now, which I've seen, and I really think that's a great thing, because we need more representation is what I'm getting at. Um,
So
More
how was that?
polyrep, more.
Yeah. How was that for you in the beginning with bondage and that being your first book? Like what were your early challenges with publishing and everything?
Well, you have to be super careful about consent, especially with Amazon. Amazon does not like DubCon. They don't like non-con. They don't like any sort of, anything that could be construed as disrupting consent. So I'm very careful never to put alcohol anywhere near a sex scene, for instance. And if you're writing Omegaverse, which is getting really big right now, you have to be super careful about the pheromone connection. Because
explain that a little bit.
Okay, so like the pheromone connection itself, or how you have to be careful with it for Amazon.
Well, so the Megaverse,
and then the
what that
other
is, and then the pheromone.
Okay, so Omegaverse is it's a relationship dynamic. It's alphas, omegas, betas, that sort of thing. Originally started in fan fiction as an explanation for how boys could get pregnant. It's expanded from there, but that was where it got its start. Where was I going with that? I don't remember.
Sorry, yeah, we were talking about the publishing
pheromones, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so pheromones there's a pheromone connection between alphas and omegas, and the problem with that is that it could be considered that it can be considered dubcon, dubious consent, if the pheromones are allowed to take too large of a role in the intimate scenes. So I'm very careful to keep that out of the intimate scenes when I write my Omegaverse, which has worked. And you can have the pheromonic connection other places, but not there. You just have to be super careful about anything that Amazon could possibly view as dubcon.
And those were the things that you ran into with early publishing of like, was that stuff that you were like, okay, someone warned you about, or you just did your research?
No, it's something that I was specifically warned about. There's a community it used to be something else. It's now IAA on Reddit, Internet, Indie Authors Ascending. And I highly recommend the community. They're a great community. I've been there since the very beginning. But there's a ton of advice and information there about what you can put on Amazon, what you can't, what'll lead to you getting put in the dungeon, things like that. And the Amazon Erotica dungeon is just that if you get stuck in there, your books aren't searchable anymore. Like they're not searchable by keyword anymore. So if somebody types it in and you're technically falling under that, you would show up, you no longer show up. So it really takes your discoverability down into the basement.
And just so everybody knows, dubcon is dubious consent. So where it's kind of questionable consent. So that's
there's a whole slew of there's dubcon and oncon and consensual non-consent, and there's a whole rabbit hole there of different things, and I won't touch any of them because I like having an Amazon account because Amazon has 80% of the global readership. So,
So what was it like publishing that first book? Like when you got to the end of it, were you like, that was a relief, or were you like that was exhausting, or how was that first publishing go?
So
how did that go?
The first publication or the first novel that I wrote, because two different things. So the first publication, I hit it and I'm like, what did I just do? It was a trip. It was a head trip for sure, because I wasn't sure that A, anybody was going to read it. B, if it was any good, because you hit that button and imposter syndrome punches you in the side of the head the first couple of times. I say that like it ever stops, but we won't talk about that. The first novel I was like, because I felt at that point I had 45 odd erotica shorts out under obviously under a different name, but I knew at that point I'd hit my stride on writing. Writing novels is a different beast than writing shorts or novellas. It's a different beast, but it's tangentially connected. So if you know how to write novellas, writing novels is not that big of a jump. And it wasn't my first. I'd written 3 other novels that will never see the light of day because they're god awful. But it's the way you get your feet wet. You got to be, the first step to being good at something is being kind of shit at it. So
yeah, and the people who aren't shit at it is just like they didn't publish it. They didn't show you.
They didn't show you. They didn't show you the shit that they put out before they put out the good thing. Yeah. That's why I always have to imagine with people that are like, they put out one novel and they earn millions of dollars. How many other novels are out there that you wrote,
on Wattpad, or
that you never showed anybody, or out there under a different name? You know what I mean? How many of those are there? How out there are you before you put this out, before you finally found your stride and you hit it big?
Or how often they journal at nighttime, or how often, there's, it's just like with
it
art.
doesn't happen in a vacuum. None of that happens in a vacuum.
Yeah.
It can't. Creativity doesn't happen in a vacuum. And
Yep.
if it does, more power to you. Bless. If you did that, if it is actually your first novel and you are one and done, more power to you, honey. I'm here to celebrate you. I will lift you up. That is fantastic for you.
Yeah.
But seriously though, how much other stuff is out there?
Right, yeah. And like my example was, with art. If you learn color theory and you learn, how generalized shapes work and shading and everything, you can go from digital to watercoloring to acrylic with a slight learning curve. Like there are
Right.
some things but it's the core foundation is there.
Right.
And one of my favorite things about you too, Megan, is just how positive, just like that right there. There's still that 1% person that potentially do that, and we're like, yeah, badass girl. That is
Right.
one thing that I love about you.
Well, my whole thing with the self-publishing and really anything that you can be successful at, I always say it's not pie. We're not going to run out. Just because you have some does not mean there's less for me. So, just you get yours. I'll get mine and we'll be happy together. It's great.
Yeah. And that's something that I think has really been resurfacing within the community. Because whenever I first started writing, I don't know if it was just necessarily the friends I had within the Facebook groups I was in, but it felt so negative. Like everyone was kind of attacking someone for something they were doing. And now I'm seeing less and less of that and more people who are just like, let's support each other. And I'm so happy that you got your break. I can't wait to get mine.
Right. Yeah. I have 2 friends that just got Tribe Publishing deals and I'm over here jumping up and down. I'm sending you balloons. It's great. I love it. Yes. Yes.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. Hey, when you're writing I want to go back to your BDSM series, or was it a series or is it like a whole?
It's a few different series. But yeah.
Did you do research as far as like the BDSM community and like that? Because I feel like you seem to be very conscientious of not putting things out there, because you'll have some people that might read this and be like, oh, I'm going to go get in a DS relationship, and neither of them know anything about a proper DS relationship.
Let's do our research. Research is important, especially with that. Let's have our informed consent. Let's make sure that we have our safe words in place. Let's make sure that we know what we're doing. And as far as like research, that is my community. I'm active and open in that community. So my husband is my dom, and so I am in that community. So I as far as research goes, I am the research.
Yeah. You're like, it works. It works.
I like it. It's good. Yeah. We like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That is one of my favorite things to like dip my toe into it. I'm like, oh, that looks so cool. Oh, that looks so cool. And then I'm like, okay, it looks cool, but I don't think I can get my husband on board. But one of these days.
I had to kind of poke mine into it. I'm not gonna lie. He's a little bit more switchy than Dom, but we make it work.
That's awesome. Which that's another thing too. It's like it's not just that's the set role. It's not just, there's so many different things within that whole realm. It's like, just like you said, switchy. It can go back and forth, or it can be the reversal, or it's such an amazing open experience if you go through it with someone who's like open and willing and understanding.
You definitely, and there's a huge element of trust there too. You have to trust the person that's guiding you.
100%.
So you have to trust that they know what they're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, you better have an experienced person on the other side knowing what they're doing. And you better have had a conversation about it, a really in-depth, probably really awkward conversation about what you are and are not willing to do. And you better have your safe words in place. If the person on the other end knows what they're doing, it's a fantastic experience. Getting into that is wonderful. And it's not for everybody, and that's okay. It's not everything is for every person.
Right.
That is something I want to touch on and it's not just with the sex life and the sex world, but having the awkward conversations and to understand someone that you care about and want to know them more. Sometimes it's awkward. Sometimes it's uncomfortable. Sometimes it's disagreeable.
Yep. Sometimes it's painful. Sometimes it's like having a really bad stomach ache. Sometimes your neck gets all knotted up and you can barely breathe, but it's an important thing to do. You know, you have to talk to the people that you care about. I've been married for 23 years. Yeah, 23 years this year. And we've had conversations that neither one of us enjoyed, but they had to happen. So,
Yeah, I tell my kids that those are courageous conversations. Like if it's
mhm,
something that's bothering you, or if it's something that you want to open up and express how you feel about it, and it's vulnerable, those are
mhm,
courageous conversations. But man, there can be some amazing outcomes from having those conversations, and
mhm.
just a feeling like you're understood or that you have been heard.
Yeah.
Sometimes those alone are enough.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% agreed.
I think that's where the trust comes in this specifically in this dynamic, because you get into such vulnerable positions.
Hmm.
So you really, that the emotional trust is as important, if not more important, than the physical trust.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Especially if and it's going to go right into it. If you're letting somebody tie you up, you better trust that person that's doing it, because you
Yeah,
could get severely injured if they do it wrong. Which
yeah,
means you better have trust in them, and you better have had those hard conversations, because if you have done
yeah,
neither, then you it's bad. It's just bad all the
Right.
way
yeah,
around.
Oh, and that's okay. So you can almost compare that to like even like a marriage, right? Like if you
Oh
didn't
yeah.
have the conversations, it can be bad. In
Mm-hmm.
in those situations where you are being tied up in a different way,
Mm-hmm.
it's the same thing, having
Yeah.
those
You
conversations to
have to.
understand your limits and everything.
Yep. And it's not only just understanding where your limits are now, it's understanding where they could possibly be stretched. It's understanding what you're willing to try and what you're not. So your hard limits, your soft limits. Um, where you're willing to put your feet if you're properly guided is way different than if you're not and you're just sitting, if that makes any sense at all. I don't know if it does. Um, but my husband and I, we walk together. Sometimes he holds my hand, sometimes I hold his hand. It really depends on where our expertise lies.
but I think too that even if you're not in, this sort of a dynamic like Randie was
Oh,
saying, it's just a regular marriage,
no, yeah.
that that it's important to have those conversations.
No, it
Not
100% still works,
Yeah,
it.
yeah, and not just of what you're willing to do, but what do you need?
Yeah, what do you
And that's
need?
just an
What?
honest conversation with
Hmm.
yourself
Yeah.
to figure out, what do I need to feel loved, to feel pleasure, to feel, you know,
Secure.
secure and safe and all those things. Like, I have like an ongoing little note that I update regularly. Like, what does Kathy need? Like, what do I need? What do I need in life? What do I need in a relationship? I mean, I think it's a lot of self-reflection that
Hmm.
people don't necessarily want to do. But I think that in order to, one, what is the reason that most marriages fall apart? Somebody is not
Communication.
fulfilled in communication,
Hmm.
right? So some need is not being met and you're not communicating that. And so either you don't feel safe to communicate that, or you are scared, and
Yep.
maybe you don't even know what you need. But
Hmm.
I just think that those are like, first have that conversation with yourself. Like, know what
Yeah,
you need.
no, that's 100% true. If you don't know what you need, how are you going to expect anybody else to know what you need? You have
Exactly.
to
But
you
I
have
think
to be
that
able
the
to
romance,
articulate it.
yes, exactly. But I love that like Randy was saying, the openness, the sex positive portion of the romance community and the romance genre, I guess,
Hmm.
um, is also kind of helping maybe some people. I want that. Like,
Yeah,
that's what I want. Maybe they didn't even know that was a thing, or that it
hmm,
was like, oh,
possible.
oh, a woman can come more than one time. What?
Hmm.
Like,
Huh?
how many people didn't know that? You
Right?
know? I mean, and so I think I love the self-discovery that you can make within reading romance novels.
Hmm.
Oh yeah. Well, I love that you brought that up, Kathy. The conversation with yourself is huge. And that's that is huge with any self-awareness or mental health growth, is
Yes.
knowing who you are and being willing to have that conversation with yourself and understanding yourself. And it's like you said, it's vulnerable and it's scary, but if you don't know you, no one else is going to.
Right.
And if you don't know you, that means everyone else is going to tell you who you are, and now you're going to be someone that someone else is making up.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I think that those relationships are so beautiful, Meghan, because when you have someone who allows you to be yourself and to go internally and be like, okay, well, what do I want? What do I like? And be patient with you when you don't necessarily know yourself or you're exploring it. That is a beautiful relationship.
Oh yeah. He's wonderful. He's my biggest supporter. He's my business manager. You know, he's the one sitting there going, you can do better. You need to answer this question. And then I go find the answer and bring it back. And then he pats me on my head. It's just really nice.
Love it.
I love that man. He's great.
He's like, I know, and that's cool too. Is like he knows the rewards to give you that really make you feel like you did a good job.
Yep, he does.
And that's huge for like rewarding ourselves for the small wins and not just the big stuff. Like take yourself out to dinner or do whatever the reward is that you enjoy doing for the finishing a chapter or finishing the small goals, you know, not just the big things.
Yeah, no, that is small. Like I refer to it as tidbitting, and it's super important. You know, I have a little jar of candy on my desk, and every time I finish a chapter, I get a little candy, and it helps on days when I can't do it myself. I have that little thing there, and it pushes me forward. You know, and so I think anything that helps you move forward is valid, no matter really what it is. I don't think it really matters if it's taking yourself to dinner or if it's giving yourself a little treat or a break or going out and sitting in the sun for 20 minutes. They're all valid. You know, it's just do what makes you feel good sometimes, and that's going to help you more than sitting in front of a computer screen beating yourself up because you can't seem to move forward. Well, something's missing. Go find it. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. The
We all
intuition.
have a little bit of a praise kink.
No, that's it.
I'm a good girl. What?
Yes, I am. I promise.
Nail on the head. Yeah. I wonder where that comes from. That comes from something, I'm sure. Cause I feel like it's all women. Like if they're saying no, they're secretly maybe just not, you know what I mean?
Or they haven't had the right person tell them they're a good girl before, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's true. If certain people told me I was a good girl, it'd probably just straight piss me off. So
The wrong person tells me that, I'm gonna kick you in the ankle. Don't do that.
But it's in the right context, right?
Right. Yeah.
Right. Of course. But I think that and I'm one of these people, especially women, we do need that a little bit of extra support. So it might not be good girl, but if I don't know how you can function and go for long periods of time without getting some sort of positive reinforcement. And hello, that is a praise. I'm sorry. That's what that's called.
True. Yeah.
And positive reinforcement is definitely necessary, I think. And I don't think it's solely tied to women. I think men need it too, you know.
Yes.
I know my husband, you know, for instance, when he does something really good, I'm always careful, you know, very careful to tell him how proud I am of him or how well he's doing or, you know, anything like that. And it makes him light up and it's great to see. So I keep doing it. I'm like, yeah.
And I love that too, because I think that men in general have been taught and raised and this pervasive, almost like oppressive, whatever.
They're raised to repress themselves. Like
they
their
don't
emotions.
need it.
That
they don't need that it's just their job, that, you know, I'm a man. I don't need that praise. I just, you know.
But no, he's doing a fantastic job and he deserves to know it.
Yeah. I'll tell you right now, if you have a man who is self-conscious in the bedroom and you tell them how good they're doing, that next time in the bedroom is going to be amazing. You're like, that one thing that you did it really well. And they're going to be like, okay.
Yep. Like, okay, let's do it. Let's do it again.
Positive reinforcements works for men and women. All genders, all of them.
Everybody needs it.
Everybody does need it. Yeah, agreed.
So one of your biggest motivational things is to make sure that people are not alone.
Mhm.
How does that, can you elaborate on that, and how has that become like your mission?
Um, well, so growing up, I was alone. I was an only child. My mom worked 3 jobs. I was alone all the time. And that does a number on you growing up. You're isolated, you don't know what you're doing, you don't know who you are because you have nobody around you to help you form those opinions about yourself. And so when I was getting older, I got into a couple of really bad relationships because I was alone all the time. I didn't know what I was doing. So what I write now is I write extremely positive, loving relationships with multiple partners, and each partner is kind of connecting with a piece of their woman and kind of building that piece up. Making sure that everybody knows that they're not alone, that there's always going to be somebody out there for you, that even if it's not physical now, it will be, that all relationships are valid. Like even if you love someone and they're on the computer, that's still a valid relationship. So I just want everybody to know that they're not alone, or even if they're alone now, it's not going to be forever.
Or even just as far as like in that situation of feeling loneliness. You're not alone in that. Other people feel that, or
Other people.
yeah, that's
Yep.
huge.
Hmm.
That's something that I realized that I connected with, was whenever I knew other people were feeling what I felt. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm not alone in feeling this.
Because we're not. We're not built to be by ourselves. We're social animals. We're built to act in groups. We're built to connect, and that is something that in today's world is a lot harder, especially post COVID. Um, and so I really want to kind of push connection forward again, because people got scared during COVID to kind of connect because COVID. And it makes sense. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that period of time was weird and isolating, and um but I think it's something that is valid to work towards, no matter who you are, really. That because we're social creatures, and we need to be with other people. And so even if you're alone now, that's not forever. That will break up like clouds on a high wind eventually.
That's
Yeah.
so encouraging. I love that you said that. Thank you. Um, but I think that I really want to touch on what you said about the we are social creatures.
Mm-hmm.
And it is interesting. Like I just got a new job, and for the past since COVID, actually,
Yeah.
I was fully remote. I worked from home.
Mm-hmm.
I really didn't see many people.
Yeah.
I would go to the gym, which I loved, and that was, but the interactions at the gym, let's be honest, are, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
super shallow. There's no connection there
Mm-hmm.
usually. And so this new job that I got, I'm in the office 4 days a week and working from home 1 day a week. And it's a challenge to
Yeah.
get back into that. I was like, ugh,
Peopling
peopling.
all the time. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're on,
Yeah.
all the time. But my daughter was like, Mom, this is going to be so good for you. Like, you're an extrovert. Like, you're an outgoing, you need people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, I guess she's right. So it's
Yeah.
been an interesting, I'm 3 weeks in. So it's been an
It's an
interesting,
adjustment period,
it is an adjustment
It's an
period to get back.
adjustment.
But I can see where I was in San Antonio for a year and a half, and I was by myself. Like I didn't know anybody there. And I did fine, but I didn't thrive. And y'all, there is a difference between
Yep.
surviving and thriving.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I moved back here to Tampa, I mean, I had my son, I had friends, I'm part of book clubs, I'm
Mm-hmm.
co-hosting podcasts now. And, like that is, I feel really for the first time in a very long time that I'm thriving.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
great.
the
It's
connection
fantastic.
piece.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So with that connection, that is something that I think is an interesting topic now as we are moving into this AI age, where the connection, people are finding a lot of connection through like talking to bots and, you know, different things like that. And I think talking to bots, and I think reading books, and I think experiencing relationships through this disconnected world is very good to learn how to come back into the real world with the skills that you've learned from these fantasy worlds or the AI communication. It's if you use these things as tools, it can further your real life connections.
Yes. Yes, I agree. I agree with AI as a tool. I don't hold generative AI up as a good thing. But as far as like things like Pro Writing Aid, which is trained on your own writing, it's trained in a closed environment. That's fine. Yeah, I use Pro Writing Aid all the time for, once again, comma splices, like my life depends on it. And it helps with that. I think that the chat bots are good for, especially like the socially awkward among us, the people that have been alone and are using it as a tool to kind of train themselves to be a little bit more social. I think that's fantastic. I'm never gonna witch hunt AI. I think Gen AI is a totally different discussion, especially the ones that have been trained on huge bodies of stolen work. I don't like that. But once again, I'm not going to witch hunt it. I'm not going to witch hunt because it is helpful. It can be used as an accommodation. I just wish they'd train it on not stolen work.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and that I love especially the phrasing that you used, witch hunting, right? Like that is something that people get so passionate about without fully knowing how it affects others and how it helps others, or just the knowledge piece isn't always there with the witch hunts. And that is really hard whenever people are so passionate about something, especially if they think it's such a negative thing. They get very passionate and their logic just goes out the window.
Yeah.
And I understand the passion. I get where it comes from. But there are other sides to these stories that people don't want to hear because their logic has turned off.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the witch hunt, and it's an accessibility issue. And to like certain types of AI are accessibility. They're helping people with disabilities be more able to contact the world. Like I know there's a program with people that are nonverbal who are using chatbots to speak, and I think that's fantastic. So that kind of thing, I 100% stand behind as
I
far as
think,
that goes.
yeah, I think one of the other areas within the book world and that is kind of pushing back against the AI is in narration. And I can see from the human narrator's point of view, that AI in that instance, the purpose of it is essentially to replace
Right.
the human.
That's why I don't.
Which,
yeah, and I won't use an AI narrator. I won't use an AI artist. I won't. My cover designs are all human. There's a human behind all of my designs. I won't use AI audiobooks, things like that. I want to give work to as many people as possible in the book community as I can.
yeah.
So that's just my stance on that. Other people are going to have a different opinion, and that's fine. You are welcome and entitled to your opinion. But this is my opinion. This is what I choose to do.
Right. Right.
And that is all it is. It's not meant to be an indictment. It's not meant to be a witch hunt. It's just, this is my stance on it.
Yeah. I love that. You do have, so that's a great segue into audiobooks. You have all, or how many books do you have audiobooks?
I do not have audio yet. I'm working on getting it up. I'm still in the research stage, I think I would call it. I want to, the problem is that all of my books are dual POV. And so I want my audiobooks to be dual POV. When I say dual POV, I mean 4. But I would like to have at least 2 narrators work on each book, 1 male, 1 female. And that's not cheap. I need the books to start earning more money so that I can put my books in more hands, because there are people that can only read audio or are more comfortable with audio, or don't have time to sit and read a book.
Right.
Or they have a disability that precludes them from doing it. I want those people to be able to experience my books as well. So I'm working my way towards audio. I've found the narrators I want to work with. We're just working out a payment plan for it.
That's exciting. That I love whenever books go from just, written format to
Mhm.
the audiobook, because it's like a whole new re-release. It's a
Right.
whole new way to experience this story. And whenever I first had my first book turned into a narration, the re-excitement that I get to feel, you get to feel as an author,
Mhm.
your book turning into like this mind production is
Right. Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. And I really want to. So I'm just working out details with the narrators, and we're gonna get it production. We should see them probably mid next year sometime is when they'll come out.
That's so exciting. I
I'm
That is
can't
very
so
wait.
excited.
exciting.
Yeah.
Yay!
Yeah, and just like you said, for people who have the disabilities or things, I'm dyslexic, and it's
Mhm.
not that I can't read. I'm just really fucking slow at it, and
Mhm.
that's like defeating a little bit when you are one, a writer yourself, and two, like people are like, oh, I finished 12 books in a month, and I'm like, I got to chapter 10.
Yeah. And that's still progress,
Yeah. So audiobooks, though, like I listen to audiobooks on double speed, and so
Yeah.
I consume audiobooks like crazy.
Mhm. Yeah.
How do you listen to audiobooks, or do you
I
primarily read?
I'm primarily reader. Audio, I get too distracted. Like I'll start listening and then my brain will wander off. Like I just gonna read it. It's fine.
Yeah.
Like if I'm listening to an audiobook, I actually have to have the physical book in my hands
Yep.
and reading along with the audio, or my brain just kind of like wanders away.
So that is actually a skill that I have learned that will help people with dyslexia read
Mhm.
faster, is doing the tandem reading.
Yeah. Yeah, my daughter tandem reads a lot because she's dyslexic as well. So she has all three forms of dyslexia, which makes everything really poor girl.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
inverted world.
Yep.
Hello.
It's yeah. We moved to dot grid paper. We moved everything's voice assisted, things like that. We have a lot of accommodations built into the computer system just to help make things a little bit easier for her.
Yeah. And that's
Mm.
huge too. Just understanding how people consume stuff, or how they what getting it into your brain, right? Like I can
Right.
read something 4 or 5 times, it's not in my brain. Like
Hmm.
figuring out how to break past that barrier of getting it into people's brains,
Right.
it's not,
That's
I don't even
huge.
want to say it's a disability. It's just how you learn, how you
Hmm.
break past that barrier.
It's an accommodation is what I'd call it. It's learning how to work how to make your brain work in your favor rather than it just sort of spiraling alone and in its own little world like a wind chime.
It makes pretty sounds sometimes.
Hmm. Oh yeah.
it's untangle when it's done, but
Yep. You got to untangle it like one of those I forget what they're called, the little things with the balls where they swing and they clack against each other.
Oh yeah.
One of
yes.
those. And then my daughter dropped hers and it got horrendously tangled and I had to spend 2 days untangling it.
Oh my gosh. That's a great way. And I literally, like, I think about that, and it's like when that happens, it's because you are trying to force your brain to
Hmm.
absorb stuff in a different way than what it wants.
Yep. And then your brain gets tangled up and you're like, this isn't working.
Yeah.
Then you have to go back and you have to figure out a different way to do it. And you have to untangle what you've done to yourself. And yeah, no, no. I did that too often. I'm done.
Yeah. So, how do you find the motivation to continue writing, especially when you are, struggling through some tough times, or life has been stacking up? Or I love
Mhm.
your what you said earlier. Life is just paddling you a little too
Yep.
much right now.
Little too hard. Just using the business paddle. Honestly, it's because it's an escape. Because I can sit there and I can go to a different world and I don't ever have to leave. It doesn't cost me anything except for some electricity, and I can make other people's lives better in the same sort of breath, kind of. So yeah, it's a win-win for me. Um, and it's watching people read the book, and like I had a reader in my she got a hold of, I sent her fantasy, she's one of my betas, and she was in my DMs yelling at me about it, and I'm like,
But you like that kind of stuff.
yeah, no, I please yell at me about it. Yeah, my editor was yelling at me about the plot twist in my last book, and she's just like, what the, and you made me wait 3 books for that, and the last one ends on a tiny cliffhanger, and my beta was mad at me about it, and I'm like, I'm sorry, it had to be done. um it didn't make sense for the book to end any other way, I promise. um So
I love that your ADHD is already messing with you, because when you raised your hands and you had a knife, I was like, where the fuck did that come from?
I have a whole box of them. I have a whole box of daggers.
You're feeling stabby right now, Megan.
No, they're bookmarks. So they're little. I had them wood burned, and they're little bookmarks.
That is
Those
so
are
cool.
so cool.
They're just also excellent fidget toys. So I've been sitting here trading them out and playing with them.
Yeah, I use my pin. I need a knife because that throws people off. Like, you just totally threw me off when you lifted that up.
A little wooden dagger. Yeah, I'm sitting here. I have a whole pile of them in front of me because I'll pick them up, play them with them, put them down, and then I'll pick up another one and start playing with it. I'm just like, okay, this is fine.
So you kind of told us a little bit about your outlining process. Did you develop that from research or just what felt natural to you?
It's 3 different methods in a trench coat. So I tried a bunch of methods. I did the snowflake, I did save the cat, I did like most of the large ones. And I just kind of bastardized them all into something that makes my brain go burr. 'Cause, you know, you got to make your brain go burr. Your brain doesn't go burr, then nothing happens. So yeah, it's like I said, it's 3 outlining methods in a trench coat. It really is. It's me taking what I like out of certain things and leaving the rest. And that is a perfectly valid method for anybody out there trying to figure out your process. Take what you can use, leave the rest. You don't feel like you have to use the method that doesn't work for you, because if it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you, and that's okay. But if some part of it works for you, take it. Nothing says you got to use the whole thing.
Yeah. Or take it and try it and then adjust it. Like, I've had stuff where it's like, okay, I like plotting, but I don't like plotting. So how can I do this without going all the way?
Yeah. And I vacillate between tent poling, which is just like me putting little pieces of it in place and letting the characters fill the rest in. And then I sat down and I wrote a 52-page full-on outline that was out the window by page 3. So, you know, just depends on what my characters are feeling like doing that day. So
when you develop your characters, this is something that I think is important for people who are like, oh, how can characters just lead the story whenever you don't know the characters? You spend a lot of time developing the characters, right?
Yeah, I do. I spend a lot of time with the characters before I even touch paper. I do personality. I do Enneagram tests. I do tarot spreads for them, you know, that kind of thing. I know these people, and sometimes they come out of my head fully formed and they don't need any of that, and I just go. But a couple of them have just been really stubborn about it, and so I've had to like sit down and really kind of nail them to the wall. But as soon as they're fully fleshed out, I put them out in the world and they just kind of go. And I'm like, you guys are making a mess, and they just give me the middle finger and I just follow them around a rap dance.
I love that you use the Enneagram test, because that is something I use too in my characters. And that is such, even if you just start with that alone, it gives you so much personality to work with.
Yep. I love that test. I'm a 9 wing 1.
I'm a 7.
I mean, I remember what number it is. 2, maybe?
Yeah, I could see you being a 2. 2s are so helpful. I love 2s. My son's a 2. Yeah, Enneagrams are fun to use, and any method that you use, as long as you're understanding your characters and what it makes them more real, right? Like, it's not just
they're not cardboard cutouts sitting somewhere. They're actual people, which has always been my goal, is to make them into actual people. Make sure that people give them something that people can relate to, you know.
When you said that you do tarot card readings, do you do that?
Yeah, I do the reading for the character. So if I have to stop in the middle because a character has a question that's not getting answered by the plot, I pull out my cards, and I'll do a 3-card spread on them and just answer the question, and then I can move forward again.
That's so interesting. Do you do tarot readings for like real life people? Like,
I do it for myself sometimes, and I'll do them for my daughter. She thinks it's hilarious. And she's like, "What?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's what it says," you know. So
we kind of touched on this before, but you are a DM. You've played Dungeons and Dragons, and do you ever put them into like a role situation?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yep. And I have rolled on tables in the past. I pulled out my deck of many things, and that was an entertaining experience. That was for my full fan. I can only do those in certain situations. You can't really pull a deck of many things trick on like a contemporary, because it doesn't work so good. But I can pull out the deck of many things, draw a card, and just go from there. You know, just kind of throw a wrench in their day and keep going. And I always say, if you're having trouble, throw another wrench in, see what happens. being somebody with a wrench. You throw a plant at their head, see what they do. I literally threw a lemon at a god, and the story just kind of went from there. So
That is hilarious.
yeah, no, it's just I refer to it as the stagecoach robbery in space. Like if something's not coming right, send them something completely out of left field, see how they handle it. It may not stay in the final draft, and that's okay, but your plot is once again moving, and that's really the only point to it.
Right. That's a piece that I think a lot of us get stuck on is like it's like there's this bridge, right? You know how this part down here goes, and then you have gone so far, but now there's this gap in between and you're not sure how to bridge it.
Yeah, it's the interstitial stuff, and the interstitial stuff hangs up a lot of writers, especially a lot of writers. It doesn't matter if you've been writing for 1 day or 7 years. The interstitial is going to get you eventually. Excuse me. And the only way to get past that is to whack your characters in the head with something. One of my books, I literally sent her to literal hell because she wasn't listening to me. And I'm like, okay, well, this is what's going to happen now because you did something stupid.
That's good. You're totally doing your DMing stuff there. You're like, you made that choice. Now you have to deal with the consequences.
You're going to try and sneak off in the middle of the night. So now I'm going to throw a demon at you, and we're going to see what happens. So yeah, that's what I do. I'm a DM at heart. If you do something stupid, you try to break my world, I'm going to break you.
Yeah. And that's true. Like, if you think about authors, like they are essentially DMs of their world, right? And that if you have that concept of like, there are rules within your world, and that's kind of how you have the structure with it. And if something is broken, if something goes against it, having the consequences makes it so much more real.
Well, and all my magic systems have consequences. My healers, if they get too tired and they can't heal conventionally anymore, they literally take the wounds of the person that they're healing onto themselves. So there's a scene in one of my books where, there's blood coming out of the corner of the eye because there's a wound there. That's not their wound. That's the wound of my main character, but the healer was too tired and took the wound away and put it on themselves. So healing's got consequences. Magic has consequences. You can't go forever. And in one of my series that's upcoming, the more magic you use, the less the more more humanity you lose. You're a shifter, but you stop being able to shift because you've used too much magic. It's got to have consequences or it's not real. And if it's not real, you're not going to get buy-in from your reader.
Yeah, it's not believable.
Right.
Yeah, and there's no stakes either. Like if there's no stakes, where's the fun? Where's the
right? Why am I reading
reward?
This? Yeah. Why am I reading this? It's although slice of life, it can be really good. Slice of life is different. I'm not knocking slice of life over here. Slice of life, cozies are fantastic.
There's still I feel like there's emotional stakes in those.
Yeah. Well, that's where you're differentiating between emotional stakes and like physical stakes.
Yeah.
Cozies have more of an emotional stake to them. And that I love cozies. I think cozies are fantastic. It's so much fun to read. Like I'm in the middle of a cozy mystery series right now, and I'm like, because I already know nobody's gonna die. It's great.
Yeah, I had no idea I just picked up my first cozy the other day, and it was an interesting, and it was very different. I had to get my mindset into like, there's not a big bad. There's not, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And it's not going to end in peril.
Right. I freaking love cozies though. Legend lattes, so good. So good. 10 out of 10 would recommend.
The one I just read is the other one from that book series. The books and that one.
Yeah, that one. Bone Dust, I think.
Yes. Yes. Yep, that one was a good book.
That Travis Baldree is a fantastic author. He's wonderful.
I had no idea it was a male writer, and I was impressed of him being able to write the sapphic the way he did. It was good.
Yeah. Travis Baldree is really nice. I met him at a con. He's a sweet man.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. I've had a lot of random people.
But you also you go to a lot too.
Yeah, I do. Todd McCaffrey, Anne McCaffrey's son is we're not, I don't know if I'd call us friends. We're definitely acquaintances. But he's really nice. Yeah, he's a really nice person. I like him a lot. Luke Gygax, the son of the man who invented Dungeons and Dragons. I played D&D with him. That was fun.
What?
Yeah, he was funny. I made him spit soda out his nose. It was very funny. Yeah, that was great. I was like very proud of myself.
So what do you read when you're like, we could just kind of touch on a little bit, was cozy fanny and stuff, but
Mhm.
what is your go-to reads?
Um, I love cozies, cozy mysteries specifically. That's when I've been devouring them lately. Like point me at a cozy and I'll read it. I also have my research. That's like my personal reading. I also have my research reading. And right now I'm reading historicals because I'm writing the fantasy. So if I'm the problem I have is that I can't read the same genre that I'm writing. So if I'm writing fantasy, I can't read fantasy. I have to read something else because if I'm reading fantasy and writing fantasy at the same time, my voice gets muddled for some reason. Don't really know why. There's probably something I need to unpack back there, but I don't want to touch it right now, so I'm not gonna. Um, but yeah, so I'm reading historicals right now. And then, when I finish this fantasy, I'll write a historical with all the stuff that I now know from my research reading. And then I'll read fantasy while I'm doing it. And then when I pick up my next fantasy, I'll be able to incorporate the stuff from the research reading that I did. So it's walking back and forth between genres, really.
And
And then
just
my
to
cozies.
explain, we've done this in Summer's podcast, but in case people don't know, a cozy genre is a low angst,
Low angst, low stakes. Just
for the people in the book. So the reader,
mhm.
it's not going to be like,
Yeah.
fucked that up. How are they going to get together? That's really
Hmm.
not going to
Yeah.
be the case. So yeah.
They're a ton of fun to read. 10 to 10 do recommend.
So I love that you say, and this is something I feel like a lot of authors do, is if someone goes to ask you about what your books are about, it's all gone.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like yes, I wrote that. What's it about? It's about 700 pages. 70,000 words. But what's it about?
I feel like that's your sticker. What's it about? It's about 700 pages.
It's about 700 pages, give or take a little bit. 70,000 words. Yeah. So, yeah,
Do you go to a lot of the book conventions,
yeah.
and how do you determine which ones to go to?
I go to the ones that are close to me. So like I have one coming up Pigeon and this coming weekend in Pigeon, I'll be in Pigeon Forge, which is about 4 hours north of me. Which, is a little further than I try to keep it on. If it's under 10 hours, it's generally a go for me. I don't want to have to fly because then you have to ship books. Although I'm breaking that rule because I'm going to Manchester next year in August. But I already have a friend in the UK that says I can drop ship my books to her. So, that'll be good. So I won't have to worry about shipping them because overseas shipping is expensive.
What is your favorite thing about the book cons? Like
I
what?
love I love talking to people. I love meeting people and talking to people. Um, my last um my last session or my last convention was I forget what it was called. Farts. Anyway, I had my bag of tiny dicks. But it was supposed to be an 18 and up event, which, so I my bag of tiny dicks on the table. And this lady walks in with two like 4-year-olds, and I'm like, I'm gonna hide that now and put it under the table. And so, everybody'd walk by and they'd start talking, and I'm like, would you be interested in my bag of dicks? 9% of the time, because I can pick up on people, and if they're going to be, if they're going to think that's funny or if they're going to think that that's scandalous, and most of the time, either way, they're going to want to see it. So, so yeah, I have a bag of tiny dicks that I sell when I go to conventions. It's a bag of monster dicks. Because my last signing was a monster, and this next one, it's a monster romance writers thing. So I'm gonna take my bag of tiny dicks and sell tiny dicks because tiny dicks are funny. And they're squishy too. They're tiny squishy dicks.
I love it. You showed us that one time, and they're literally
Mhm.
just like about that big.
Yeah, they're between 2 and 4 inches, and they're just tiny squishy dicks, and it's very funny. Oh, I tell you this story the other day. My cat Chi-Chi, he fetches, right? And I left one of my
Oh
tiny dicks out.
God.
And he will carry around a toy in his mouth, looking for somebody to play with him. So I walk out of my bedroom. What does this cat have in his mouth? Take a guess.
What is this tiny dick?
Tiny dick. Yep,
Funny.
that
That is
happened.
so
It
funny.
was hilarious. I should have gotten a picture for my newsletter, but I was laughing too hard and I forgot. And of course, he puts it down at my feet and looks up at me and just meows because he wants me to throw the tiny dick for him. I'm just like, okay. I got him a piece of paper instead because don't want him biting the silicone because as much as it's like body safe and non-toxic, I don't want him eating it because You know, so I got him a crumpled piece of paper. Instead, we played fetch for a little while. It was very cute. You know, I still can't believe I walked out and there was this dick hanging out of his mouth. I'm like, oh my God. It was very funny.
That's
He was exploring his sexuality, Mom.
Oh, that's fine, but he doesn't need to drop a dick at my feet.
Boundaries, kitty, boundaries.
Right?
Mom has boundaries too.
Like I don't need to see that at like 7 a.m. Not my favorite thing. That's, you know. I was very funny though. I laughed way too hard. And I told everybody, I was like, I guess what this cat just did.
Oh shit.
Yeah, it was very funny. I was very amused by it.
So what
Cats.
book do you, I know pets and kids and all of the above.
All of it. Yeah.
Husbands.
Like...
What book do you have coming up, or which one are you most excited about?
Oh gosh. So the one that just came out, I'm very excited about. Fantasy is the third book in my Honorary series, my Greek series. It's a reimagining of the Greek gods and the Olympus and stuff like that. It's very fun. So that's out now, and I'm very excited for that one. I've gotten a lot of really good feedback on it. It's going really well. But the next one coming up, I'm also super excited about. That'll be book 5 in my Omega Brides. That one is His Accidental Bride, and that one is just a sweet little story. You think it's going to be a sweet story, and then she turns into a badass and you know, stabs a staff through a guy's face. It's great.
Nice.
It's wonderful. It's one of the better. It's one of my favorite books that I've written, and I'm just sitting over here because you know, she's this tiny mousy scared thing at the beginning, and then she turns. Oh, it's so good. This, like, the character progression is amazing. And then
do you have this problem? And I have this problem. Whenever I'm explaining a book to someone, I'm trying to explain it to them without ruining it. Like,
yes.
it's like, wait, they do this really cool thing. Oh shit, you can't.
I can't say can't say that. Can't say that. Really can't say that.
Yeah.
Like, just read it. You'll love it.
Just, it's a great book. Just go read it. I wanted to put that on the back of my books for my blurbs. I wrote this for you. Read it. It's good.
Can you hold up the fantasy book? I know that you don't have you have the other one, just so that our
do I have it? Yes, I do.
Listeners can see. So you know,
that'd be this guy right here. My thick lad. He's 69,000 words, which is the funny number, which makes me happy every time I like because I'm 12. And yeah, but that's fantasy. That's the one that just came out. I have him. He's on his way to me, but this is that entire series is right here. What's in print right now. So this is the first book. This is Dream. This is the second book. This is Nightmare. Nightmare is twice as long as Dream because, you know, of course it is. And then Fantasy, would not stop talking, which is why it's as thick as it is. So that's the series. It's my love. I love it. It makes me happy. I'm like, yay, my babies. I have art. I have so much art for that series. It's disgusting. Or maybe it's not. It just depends on how much you like art. I got, in case you ever want to know what 800 stickers looks like, I can tell you it's a lot of frickin' stickers. Because there was a deal going on. I have 8 different art pieces that are chibis of the characters. I have the 4 characters. I have couples, and then I have a group. So I have 9, so it's 900 stickers. And the sticker place I get them from was running a sale on, if you buy 100, you get 100 for free. So I did that, and I have a lot of stickers now.
You're like, and then I did that, and then I did that again, and then I did that again.
And I did it a couple more times, and now I've got a lot of stickers. But I'm not mad about it because they're cute.
Yeah, that's another piece to being an author that I think it can be very fun, and it can also be very draining as the extra beyond your book, right? Like, you write a book.
There's so much. Yeah, you wrote a book, good job. Now what? Like, what?
Yeah.
And you're like, there's marketing and you know, ads and cover work and art, and you're just like, hang on.
Just like, wait, let me write this down.
Let me write it down. But yeah. And there's, you know, events, and you have to hold inventory for those, and, you know, it's a whole thing. Like, I had to go in and re-inventory all my stuff today because I've got an event this coming weekend. So I had to inventory all my books and make sure that, you know, and my stickers and my swag, and make sure that everything's ready to go. And, you know, we're renting a car to drive to Pigeon Forge because, you know, we like doing that. And Isabel's coming to this one. This will be her first event. So her and her dad are going to go explore Pigeon Forge while I'm signing that day. because it's, again, an 18 and up event. She can't be at the event, but she can go chill out in Pigeon Forge, which is where Dolly Parton is from. So they're going to go chill and look around, and then we're all going to go to dinner afterwards. So it's going to be.
Are you going to go to Dollywood?
Probably. We went to Dollywood last time we were up there. So it's just going to depend on how much time we have. We might go on Sunday. The weather, the weather's kind of funky.
Did the hurricane not affect?
It did, but Pigeon Forge is fine. We got hit a little bit. We lost a couple of trees, but bless the people in Florida. May they recover swiftly. But yeah, so
I was dodging trees.
Yeah. Well, Meghan, you were amazing. I was so excited about this episode from the beginning of when we first met and started getting to know each other. So I appreciate you, and I love your mind, and I love the way that you think about stuff, and I love that you are one of my favorite people. So
yay, that makes me happy. Thank you very much. It was great being here. I appreciate your time, and questions. Questions are always fun. I love questions.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of L3. We can't wait to see you on the next one. Hey guys, thanks for joining us on this episode of Lemons Listening Library. Remember, every story has a journey, and every journey deserves to be heard. Keep reading, keep writing, and keep listening,